6 minutes after 2 here on FAN. Check your clocks. Make sure it's 2 o'clock, not 3. We're back to standard time. Got daylight time behind us. We've got a half an hour of your favors in front of us at 718-937-6666. Coming up at 3 o'clock, of course, Rich Mancuso and our wrestling hour. Some good letters this week. Good questions. We didn't get to the letters last week. We'll get to them in an abundance this week. And also be taking your wrestling telephone calls here on your All Sports station.
The Chamber of Horrors match, Wyndham probably would be replaced by Van Vader. Chamber of Horrors match has El Gigante, Rick and Scott Steiner, and Sting on one side. Of course, Scott Steiner probably won't be doing much wrestling, more, I guess, be watching the action, because he's not 100% healed from the torn bicep injury. They're supposed to go against Oz, and it's supposed to be Barry Windham, Diamond Stern Abdul the Butcher, in this electrocuted type of cage, crazy type of match. But Wyndham, just a couple nights ago, was doing his bulldog final move in the ring and severely hurt that wrist where he cannot wrestle. Now, the other rumor is that Ron Simmons, he's been out of action the last week. He's missed a whole bunch of dates for WCW in the last week. And Ron Simmons supposed to go after Lex Luger's title in the main event. And if Simmons' wrist doesn't heal, it's his left wrist. That doesn't heal in time. Well, then Dusty Rhodes looks like he's going to be wrestling at Halloween Havoc in the main event against Lex Luger. So they've come down with some injuries. And tell you, this is a card where WCW can't afford to have these injuries. And you don't want to see Dusty Rhodes against Lex Luger. Ron Simmons, Lex Luger, even that isn't that great as an enticement for a pay-per-view of the main event. But let's just hope Simmons is well enough where he can go in against Lex Luger.
And forget the fact that Dusty shouldn't be wrestling, period. But, Richie, how could they put him into a main event on a pay-per-view show that they need to do well in and know that he's just going to get completely booed out of the arena?
Well, he was going to be involved in the main event anyway. He's supposed to be with Simmons at ringside. So he was going to get involved in the activity somehow. And Dusty's supposed to be getting in a series of matches with Lex Luger down the line. Believe it or not, this was their plan. So if Simmons can indeed not wrestle, then Dusty will do it. Yeah, it's totally ridiculous. The guy should not be wrestling. From what I hear, he's so overweight, more overweight than when he was working in the WWF.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
So it would be ridiculous. I don't expect a big buy rate from this either. The WCW buy rates in the last pay-per-view shows have been horrendous. I don't think this one is going to draw anything big. But Halloween Havoc always seems to draw some interest. The last two have been quite interesting. I remember a few years ago we had Terry Funk in there and with Ric Flair all in that cage, and so they've been interesting. But, this one I think more important is that the Chamber of Horrors match and a couple of title matches will propel the interest. But I agree with you, Jody. I hope Dusty is not in the main event.
Will we see Rick Rude tomorrow night?
That's the other thing. Rick Rude, rumored for weeks becoming WCW, supposedly has signed the contract and will be in there as the Halloween Phantom, which they've been saying they don't know who it is. It's supposed to be wrestling Tom Zink. Now, exactly what his role will be and what type of, probably be wearing a mask and then unveil himself as Rick Rude. But he signed a lucrative contract that's somewhere in the $100,000 range, and he'll make his debut at Havoc.
And there's as much action going on outside the ring as in the ring with the WCW, and it all surrounds Paulie dangerously.
Yeah, Paulie, interesting, had a press conference of his own that he called with his attorney at the China Club in New York City this past week. And basically what came out of it is Paulie is denying the claims of the WCW about this leak of information to Eddie Gilbert for this type of match between Lex Luger and Jerry Lawler that would kind of merge the WCW old NWA belt together. And Paulie vehemently denied that this was the situation. He said he never spoke to Gilbert. In fact, Eddie Gilbert denied that Paulie ever spoke to him. And Paulie basically said that he's going to give WCW a matter of a few more days to make a decision with him. And, he's being paid through his contract to the end of April of '92. So some decisions have to be made, because if it can't be settled, I'm sure Paulie will be looking to get out of this contract. If he's not going to work, he has to sit idle. I'm sure he'd like to go to WWF, and I think WWF would like to have him.
Is that why you think he's doing this, to try and get out of the contract so he can go to the WWF?
I haven't talked to Paul to get his comments on what his feeling is, and I didn't attend the press conference, but from people I spoke to that did, the feeling is that Paul is totally disgusted about the latest events in WCW, as a lot of people are, because Paulie is well-liked. And that the feeling is that if they can't come to an agreement to end the suspension, that Paulie would like to get out of this contract and, pursue the WWF.
Are there any decent undercard matches on the Halloween Havoc show, Rich?
Well, you look at the Brian Pillman, Ricky Morton light heavyweight title match. Brian Pillman is, again, in my opinion, one of the best leaping wrestlers in the business, and Pillman should win that match, and that should be interesting. I like the Enforcers Patriots match for the WCW tag title. I expect the Enforcers to keep those belts. Dustin Rhodes against Austin for the TV title. Look for Dustin Rhodes to get the gold, to get the TV title, only because his father Dusty is calling the shots. I don't think Dustin Rhodes deserves a title at this point in his career. And that should change. Rhodes should get it. Otherwise, you may see a good match down. You got Van Hammer against Michael Hayes. I don't think much of that, except that they're pumping up Van Hammer. They're building him up so big, it's almost like he's the Ultimate Warrior. Bobby Eaton against Terrence Taylor is another type of match that could have some interest. And PN News and Big Josh against these creatures, that's just a match that they just put on the card. Again, I think the card is too long for the 2.5 hours. So these will probably be short matches with probably no climatic endings that can tell the future for the WCW. I don't know. Just like Halloween, I think it's a lot of mysteries, but don't expect mysteries to be mysteries if Dusty Rhodes indeed wrestles Lex Luger.
It's not a question of treat or trick with Dusty Rhodes. It's not a treat at all to see Dusty wrestling at this time. Certainly only a trick. 20 after 4 here on FAN. Nope, first time I blew it, Eddie. Hadn't messed up the time for 2 hours and 20 minutes. First time I screwed it up. 20 after 3 here on FAN. Jody Mack with Rich Mancuso. Our wrestling hour will continue with some WWF talk. Then we'll get to your letters and get to the phones as well. Wrestling fans, 718-937-6666.
Hey, Net fans, follow your team all year round. Here on the Fan.
2 minutes after 3 here on FAN. Jody Mack with you. Rich Mancuso's on the line with us. Richie, in the WWF, seems like a little house cleaning going on this week?
There's some house cleaning because they just don't have enough shows to keep the talent on. So out looks like Hercules and Paul Romer and Slick and Mr. Fuji and possibly even the Rockers. But the big news, Ricky Steamboat, it hasn't been officially confirmed, but my sources have told me that Ricky Steamboat has been dropped from the WWF, basically over what his future would be and what he was supposed to do that he hasn't been doing in the WWF. And they wanted him to go into some feuds with The Undertaker down the line and with IRS, but he reneged on doing some things, and they gave the axe to Ricky Steamboat. So there goes any plans, if this indeed is true, any plans for a possible Ricky Steamboat Ric Flair confrontation in the WWF.
Why would they move Steamboat out at this time when they know they could have some dynamite matches against Flair coming up?
Well, they're probably looking at Ric Flair's immediate plans here with Hogan and things like that, but it basically came down to a difference of opinion. And in the WWF, if you have a difference of opinion, especially a guy like Ricky Steamboat, he's not Hulk Hogan, he isn't Randy Macho Man Savage, he isn't one of the big guys. And he has a big difference of opinion, and they're not going to go for it. So that's the story as it stands right now. Again, it hasn't been officially confirmed, but I heard from a good source just this morning that Steamboat's possibly gone.
Without Steamboat, it looks like it's Flair Piper straight ahead.
Flair Piper, in fact, that's the main event at the Garden Monday evening, and Flair Hogan. But jumping ahead, the big news was Sid Vicious. We talked about that torn bicep last week, and yeah, he had surgery this week. Not as severe bicep tear as that Scott Steiner had in the WCW, but it's enough to keep Justice on the sidelines for at least 4 months. And that throws the WWF in quite a quagmire because you don't know what they don't know what they're going to do now. They had this December 3rd show for a couple of days after the Survivor Series, where the plan was that Hogan would not be the champion, and they were going to pick Flair, Hogan, and WrestleMania for the belt. And of course, Justice was going to be the champion, and Hogan's movie's not doing well, as we discussed last week, and you don't know how that's going to make implications for him to do future movies in Hollywood, and also may want to let him stay in the WWF a bit longer. So, you know, as we speak, Jody, it's very confusing. The Survivor Series, it looks like The Undertaker Hogan could go in a way where Hogan could drop the belt, and it could be controversial. And then if they keep the December 3rd show, Hogan and The Undertaker will have the rematch, or Jack Tunney could take a role. Randy Macho Man Savage is reinstated, and he's into this picture all of a sudden. So, as we talk and as the days go by, things could change. It's very confusing what's going on at WWF now because nobody expected Sid Justice to be on the sidelines for a few months.
Where does this leave that second pay-per-view show that they were going to put in right after the Survivor Series?
Well, they are contemplating what to do with it. I think they're going to go ahead with it because it's a revenue thing for them right now. They talk about letting these guys go and cutting back on shows and laying off some people in the front office personnel. So they were looking for this December 3rd shot to spark some revenue into Titan Sports, which it definitely will because it's not being priced as what you can get at the Survivor Series. I mean, it'll go for something like $12.95, and would only be like an hour and a half show. I think it's going to go on, and I think what they'll do is ramifications again from the Undertaker-Hogan match with some type of storyline with Ric Flair in there. And I think whatever happens, it's going to culminate in the main event of WrestleMania between Hogan and Flair.
We've talked about Justice and he being the heir apparent to the championship. We've speculated on the fact that The Undertaker could take the title from Hogan. If Justice is going to be out 4 months, and let's say Hogan does want to stick with the movie career and isn't dissuaded by the fact that this one isn't doing well at the box office, would they let The Undertaker keep the title for a good couple of months, or do you think they'd turn it over to Flair?
No, I think they would turn it over to Flair. And again, depending on what Hogan decides to do and seeing how long Justice is going to be out, you know, you could have Flair going into WrestleMania as the champion and then Hogan getting it back at WrestleMania. Again, all speculation based on Hogan's future plans and also Justice's kind of healing from the injury.
And I understand one of my favorite wrestlers, the Rockers, may be out, but Tito Santana's back in.
Yeah, El Matador made his debut on TV yesterday. I don't know. I didn't like him as Tito Santana, and I don't like him as El Matador. I think this is, in my opinion, I think it's ridiculous. He comes in with a Mexican, he looks like a matador that he's in a bull ring. This is wrestling, not fighting bulls. And, but they have big plans again for Tito Santana right now. That's because it's loyalty. Tito has never given them a problem. He's been very good to work with. He's done what they said. And he's going to be getting an added push. I think the plan with the El Matador thing is Conan is supposed to be coming into the WWF for months. Right now he's still in Mexico. I think the plan is that they'll put up Santana as El Matador against Conan.
Now, is he being looked on as a heel or a fan favorite as the Matador?
Well, the Matador is a fan favorite, and Conan is a fan favorite in Mexico, and Conan was supposed to be a fan favorite here, but if they're going to match these two up, then El Matador would be the good guy, and Conan the bad guy.
29 minutes after 3 here on FAN. Jody Mack and Rich Mancuso. Midway through our wrestling hour. As I mentioned earlier, we've got a good bunch of letters to get to. Some real good questions in there as well. But we will also get to your phone calls at 718-937-6666. Got a half an hour left of wrestling, hour and a half to the show. Steve Fredericks coming in at 5, and Ligori's got the morning off. But prior to all of that, we've got to give John Clossy a chance to update us on everything in the world of sports. 26 minutes in front of 4 here on FAN. Keep trying to push it back further and further. MacMan with you till 5. Fredericks on the fan at that time. Rich Mancuso on the fan right now. Got a good pile of letters to get to, and as I mentioned, some good questions as well. See what Rich has to say about that, and then we'll take your telephone calls. Wrestling fans, get to the phone, 718-937-6666. 3:37 here on FAN. Good morning, everybody. Jody Mack and Rich Mancuso doing the wrestling thing for you here on FAN. Richie, we got a bunch of letters to get to, so let's attack. First letter comes to our pal Jim Baines from Auburn, Massachusetts. Want to thank Jim. He sent me along a copy of all the WWF champions and when the titles changed hands, something that we'll keep handy if we get any questions like that here on the segment. And Jim's got a question for us. Despite earlier reports of its failure, the UWF seems to be hanging in there. What's its prognosis?
Hanging in there with repeats on Sports Channel America, and they're not doing very well. The reports I get from the cable company, Sports Channel America, that they're probably on the verge of termination at the end of the year.
Bob LaRocca from Hatboro, PA wants to know, is the Orient Express going to turn on Mr. Fuji?
Yes, they are, and that will lead the Orient Express to wrestle separate ways and Mr. Fuji to be bounced out.
Ed Killer Jerkowitz from Bayonne, New Jersey has a question. Will Vince McMahon ever bring in a good Indian wrestling tag team to the WWF or a single wrestler like Chief Jay Strongbow once was?
Well, the problem is there aren't any real Indian wrestlers out there right now. There's a few wrestling on the independent rank, but not good enough to go to the WWF.
You want to know something, Rich? I think this guy's got a great angle. You know that McMahon is as trendy as they come, and with as much flack as the Tomahawk Chop has gotten, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets an Indian wrestler in there within the next month.
Well, it's possible, but you know something? I think with the WCW having, they're owned by Ted Turner, owns the Braves and that. I don't know about that, Jody, but it is possible. But, that Ken Herbeck thing this week, too, they want Ken Herbeck to WCW as soon as he gets out of baseball.
Good luck. Darren Slaughter from Harlem has a couple of questions. Who do you see Ron Simmons feuding with after Luger?
That's a good question. I think Simmons will probably still get these shots with Luger for a while, and I don't know who's out there for him right now. It looks like it's just Luger, Simmons right now. I haven't announced any plans.
Do you see Dusty Rhodes being replaced as matchmaker of the WCW anytime soon, and will his wrestling help make that process go quicker?
Well, they committed to him by extending his contract, and again, I think that they have this thing with Dusty that they committed to him, and that they're not entirely blaming everything on him.
Steve Cohen from Fairview, New Jersey has 3. Where are they now? Salvatore Bellomo?
He's wrestling independent.
Buddy Rogers?
Buddy Rogers down in Florida, living comfortably.
Billy Jack Haynes?
Billy Jack wrestling full-time in Pacific Northwest in Oregon.
The Pro Boys have a deuce for us. Is there any talk of Gorilla Monsoon becoming WWF president and retiring Jack Tunney? He would be a natural.
No, the talk is that maybe they'll do something with Jack Tunney becoming a type of a heel president of WWF, and possibly even doing something with this justice injury where he has to declare the title vacant or something like that. Again, that could happen on December 3rd based on interference in the Survivor Series match.
Now that Medusa Michelli is in the WCW, will she have matches against Lady Blossom, Alexandra York, and Missy Hyatt?
She wants to be the first lady in the WCW, and she's going to be feuding with them all.
Next up is, I can't read his name, it looks like Tom from Bayshore. If Ted DiBiase were to retire, what would be the future of Sensational Sherry?
Well, Sherry, I think that as popular as she is, and how she gets the crowd going, Sherry's going to have a job there.
Okay, and Halloween Havoc, why is one member of the Freebirds facing a fan favorite, the other facing a heel? Andrew Silverstein wants to know.
Well, the Freebirds are now fan favorites. There's no real reason why they're doing this. In a pay-per-view show such as Havoc and any other pay-per-view, the WCW does this.
Keith Legase from New Britain, Connecticut brings to our attention that Tito Santana was wrestling independent over the last couple of months and actually got the ICW title from Tony Atlas.
Yes, he did. He was on borrowed by from the WWF as part of some type of working agreement. He did. He held the title for about 2 months.
And who did he lose it back to?
Tony Atlas again.
Okay. David Lenhoff from Hackensack has a question. Why is Missy Hyatt's segment called Missy Does the Mail and then not read any letters from fans?
I don't know. I guess another goof up by the WCW.
No.
But that's an interesting point. Missy Hines has a role to do there, and I don't know. Maybe a production error.
All righty. We read our letters each and every single week, including one from Glenn Rossi. Will the WWF have a retirement presentation for Andre at WrestleMania 8, and if so, will Hogan make friends with him and give it to him?
Well, I know that they've been talking about a retirement type of tour for Andre, and possibly culminating at WrestleMania. You can see right now Andre is nowhere to be seen in the Survivor Series picture. Whether they do something afterwards is still undetermined.
When Sid Justice becomes the next champion, will he stay as a good guy like Hogan, or will he turn bad at any time during his reign?
No, he'll be good. He's supposed to be the successor to Hogan. The marketing strategy can't work on their end if Justice becomes a bad guy.
Next letter is our pal Andy Siegel from Flushing. In your opinion, Rich, which was the better match? Savage Steamboat WrestleMania 3 or Hart Hennig SummerSlam 91?
Savage Steamboat.
Was Mean Gene Okerlund ever a wrestler?
Well, actually, just once, I can recall in the AWA. He teamed up with Hogan once. And in fact, the WWF calendar a few years ago, they had a picture of Mean Gene wrestling in the ring, teamed up with Hogan.
Is there any chance of the following wrestlers leaving Memphis to join the WCW? Jerry Lawler, Brickhouse Brown, Miss Texas.
Well, Lawler was supposed to. That's why this thing supposedly with Paul Lee, where his suspension came in. Out of the three, I would think it'd be Lawler, but he doesn't want to go for it, so rule that out.
Okay, will Abdullah the Butcher feud with Sting?
I think so, yeah.
All right. Bag O' Cheese, our pals have a couple of questions. What is the WCW steering committee, and what are they steering?
Well, I don't know what they're steering, but basically it's guys like Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, Jim Hurd. They get together, and Dusty Rhodes, combination of all where they decide what they're going to do with these matches and what route one guy's going to go.
A rhetorical question from Bag O' Cheese. What does Hogan do worse, wrestle or act?
Both.
And finally, they said if Flair wins Hogan's belt, they're going to have a party, and we are both cordially invited, Rich.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Hanging out with Bag O' Cheese.
You already got a gift from them over there once.
Fred Esposito wants to know, how much money does Jack Tunney make a year?
Well, I don't know, but basically Jack Tunney's role is a promoter of WWF matches up in Toronto, Canada.
Was Ken Patera ever really in jail, and if so, why?
Yeah, he was, and that stemmed from throwing a brick through a window in a restaurant somewhere, and yeah, he served some time.
Here's a good question. Do you think Mr. Perfect's back injury is due to steroid cutting down? He had to stop taking them because of the tests.
I would say, again, the rumor about Henning was that he's out for a year from something, and they're not giving an official reason. WWF hasn't said why. But there were other rumors that he failed his steroid test, and that's why he's out of action, and there'd be no explanations and no mention of him at all, at least for a whole year.
Good news for Jay Michael from Suffering, a huge Randy Macho Man Savage fan. You told us that he is now back in the promotion full-time. Where do you think they're heading with him?
They're heading to him like on a full-time basis. He's probably going to get into this feud with Jake Roberts, and they'll run a thing. He could be wearing a mask. If he doesn't get reinstated, they could play it that way, and he's going to be wearing a mask as Madness, or he'll just go in there and wrestle against Jake Roberts.
Okay, is there any truth to the rumor that Rick Rude might be doing any wrestling work in Puerto Rico? I guess not if he signed with the WCW.
No, it would be WCW, and there would be a full-time commitment.
Got a letter from a new fan of the show, Joseph Mangircina, and he wanted to know, when is Larry Katz's show on? I heard some good things about Larry's show. What time is it on, and what are the letters down there in Baltimore?
Larry's in Baltimore on Sunday evenings from 10 p.m. to midnight. I don't recall he just moved to another station. I'll try and get that on. We're going to try and get Larry Katz on in the next few weeks, too.
Okay.
So you lay that.
Then Rob and Rob have a question. We think the WCW should be embarrassed and ashamed of themselves for airing Van Hammer's video. Rich, what do you think of Van Hammer and his stupid gimmick?
Well, they're making him look like the Ultimate Warrior so much. And, I've seen the video. It's a music video. What can you say? Which has nothing to do with wrestling.
Next up, Mike and Doris. Will the Mouth of the South ever turn good, Jimmy Hart?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, Joe from Mount Vernon has a couple. Where are they now? John Studd.
John Studd is retired from wrestling and doing movies and commercials. He lives in the Delaware Valley area.
All right, he's got two other questions as well. Will Paul Orndorff come back to either the WCW or the WWF?
He was rumored to be coming back to the WWF, but that's not going to happen. He's in touch with the independents, and that's where he's wrestling right now.
Does Rich see Bret Hart losing the Intercontinental title to Jake the Snake Roberts?
No, I don't.
Okay, now we're into last week's letters. Another one from Darren Slaughter. How much do wrestling announcers get paid, and who is the highest paid of all the wrestling announcers?
Well, their salaries varied. I think Gene Okerlund is one of the top ones, and of course Jim Ross, with his role as on the executive committee there at WCW.
Okay, you know any ballpark figures, or?
A guy like Mean Gene makes over $250,000.
Wow, that's a pretty nice chunk of change. Are wrestling belts really made of gold?
Yes, they are.
Okay, Michael from Middle Village has a couple of good questions. Have we seen the last of Elizabeth?
No, as soon as Randy gets back in there full time, she's not going to be a centerpiece where you'll see her often, but she will make her appearances.
Does Hogan get free publicity for his movie when the TV announcers talk about it right before his movie commercials?
Yeah, he sure does.
I guess that's a trade-off because in the movies they're plugging one of their
That's right.
top wrestlers.
That's right.
Here's a thought-provoking question. Will there be a Jim Neidhart-Bret Hart feud when one of them changes their ways?
Well, one of them changes their ways, that happened, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, but Neidhart would be an easy turn.
Yeah.
Will the WWF announce beforehand that Hogan is retiring at WrestleMania 8 and that be his finale?
Yeah, they would do that, yeah.
All right, Eric, the Midnight Rider. Where are Big Daddy Dink?
Oliver Humperdinck is out of WCW, and I think he's looking for a job right now.
And the Juicer?
Art Barr is trying to wrestle in Portland, but because of that rape situation that caused him to get bounced out of WCW, the guy is on the sidelines, but he's trying very hard every day there in Portland. They have a very tough commission there in Oregon.
And last letter is from Ben Rob and Rob again. Is J.J. Dillon going to return to managing anytime soon?
No. Very content in the front office role of the WWF. In fact, the man has been very instrumental in putting a lot of these contracts together.
And does either the Berserker or Mike Rotundo have a chance of beating Bret Hart for the Intercontinental?
No. I think you can see Bret Hart the IC champion for a while.
And another fan from Maine called earlier and said, ask Rich what Sonny King is up to these days.
Well, the last I heard, Sonny King was a mailman somewhere in the Midwest.
And hopefully he is trudging on through rain, sleet, snow, or fog. We're trudging out to your telephone calls. We've only got a couple of minutes. We'll try and go rapid fire to them at 718-937-6666 after this fan timeout.
When it comes to sports, we're the leader. Everybody else follows the fan. Sports Radio 66, WFAN, New York. Champs Sports Rock Cafe. Sports Rock Cafe. You know, it's
And he's an All-American.
He didn't play pro?
No, I don't think so. I think he just got drafted by a few teams and an injury, some type of injury cut it short.
Okay, and who's going to win the match tomorrow?
Between Luger and Simmons?
Yeah.
Well, if Simmons is healthy and is in there, I think he will be. Lex Luger.
Okay, thanks.
Travis, thank you. Ken from Philadelphia is on FAN.
Yeah, how you doing, Jody? What's up, Rick?
Hi, Ken.
Kevin Madison, Philly. I got a question. I read the magazine that King Kong Bundy was supposed to make a comeback, and if he did make a comeback, do you think he'd be one of the natural disasters?
Well, I don't know what magazine, by the way, Ken?
Rick?
Yeah.
You ever see King, the Patriot ever come to the WWF? If so, would he be an IC or WWF champion?
No, I don't see him coming to the WWF, at least within the next year. He'll get some play, I'm sure, but I don't see it coming. And referring Ken again to King Kong Bundy, I just saw him just recently, and he told me that he was not going to return to wrestling. He's very happy with what he's doing. In fact, he's dropped a lot of weight. You would never even recognize the guy.
Guys, thanks for the call. Greg from Manhattan's on FAN. Hi, Greg.
How you doing? Rich. Yeah, 3 quick questions. Number 1, is there anything new on the Ultimate Warrior situation?
Okay, the Ultimate Warrior is still at home in Phoenix, Arizona. WWF is talking to him. They're going to wait this 90 days to get it over with. And I think with Justice out, and it's going to be out 4 months or so, they're going to have him back.
Is that thing about him being HIV positive true?
Again, at the last few weeks this has come up. It's a rumor. I have not I haven't talked to the guy.
Yeah.
We've heard it from more than one person. It's a touchy thing to say. Their reasoning is they may have failed the steroid test.
Yeah.
and then the contract.
Okay, what do you see? I heard rumors that Bobby Eaton might be turning heel and possibly Shawn Michaels on Marty Jannetty.
Yeah. There's also rumors that the Rockers, that be the case, that one of them will be leaving the promotion, if not both of them. And the reason is that these two don't get along outside the ring.
Yeah.
They really don't.
Now, the last question is, you think, now this is kind of funny, but do you think we're going to see anybody juice at Halloween Havoc? Because I know on the last two pay-per-views for the WCW, there's not been any.
Well, Chattanooga, Tennessee, I don't think there's an athletic commission, so it's very possible. And the other, I would say with the cage match, the Chamber of Maze, and with Abdul the Butcher in there, he's
absolutely. All right, I want to say a quick hello to all my friends in Mount St. Vincent. Rich, take care.
Greg, thanks for the call. Terry from Woodside's on FAN.
Yeah, how you doing? I'd like to find out, every Saturday, well, every 4 months, like on a Saturday on NBC, they used to show the main event.
Yeah.
Whatever happened with that?
They dropped it. WWF, NBC canceled it because the ratings were pretty low the last year, and there was no secret to the fact that they were negotiating to do something with the Fox network, the specials. So they dropped it, and there's no talk about it being revived. And I know it's missed. We had something interesting to look forward to. But WWF has to do something to get it. They may get one special out of them to hype up their WrestleMania show in April.
Terry, thanks for the call. Tim from Queens is on FAN with Rich Mancuso.
All right, I got 3 questions. One is, who are the Invaders, and do they still wrestle?
Well, they've gone their separate ways.
Number 2, do you think Jack would ever make it in WWF?
I think he will, and then again, it's a good move that he made it back to the WCW. It's added some interest in their shows with him coming back. And I think Cactus go WWF. I don't know what his contract says now in the WCW, but I'm sure that could happen.
All right, number 3. I heard from somebody I know who talks a lot about this. He said there was a tag team in the independent scene named the Executioners.
Yeah.
And he said they might be coming to the WWF. Is this true?
No, I haven't heard anything.
All right.
Timmy, thank you for the call. Last caller tonight on our wrestling segment, Tom from the Bronx.
Yeah, how you doing, guys? One comment, one question. The question is, whatever happened to Dynamite Jack Evans, who used to team with Larry Sharp?
I don't know what Jack Evans is. I'll ask that to Larry Sharp this week when I talk to him.
Okay, and the other thing is, I either read or was told some time ago, Sonny King was killed. I believe he was stabbed. Maybe I'm misinformed, but I'm almost sure that he's no longer with us.
I don't know. The last I heard, now I'm going 5 years ago. I last heard what he was doing. And again, a lot of wrestlers from years back, a guy like Sonny King was very popular in the 60s and early 70s, and just disappears. Then you find out once in a while where they are. Yeah. And you may have heard he passed away.
Yeah, either somebody told me or I read it that he was stabbed to death in an accident, and then I don't know why he was stabbed to death, but that was the reason. That he's no longer with us, as far as I know. Maybe somebody else out there knows for sure, but that's either what I read or was told, but I know that's stuck in my mind.
Well, wrestlers drop out of the picture. Sometimes they really drop out of the picture.
Really?
Tom, thanks for the call.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Richie, any good independent shows coming up?
The UWA, November 8th, at the Dunn Sports Center in Elizabeth, New Jersey, comes back with a good show. Nikolai Volkov, Coco Beware, and Honky Tonk Man are just 3 of the many that are going to be on the show. It's a 8 p.m. start. It's Saturday night, Friday night, I believe, November 8th. Well, that was the night of Tyson's fight, I think. It's November 8th in Elizabeth, New Jersey, at the Dunn Sports Center.
And Richie, if they didn't get through to you tonight during the week?
24 hours a day at 1-900-230-1500. 1-900-230-1500. And call because you'll hear the Phantom of the Ring.
Richard, always a pleasure.
Jody, till next week, maybe I'll be up awake. Keep it in the ring.
Rich Mancuso here with us on FAN.